Hi there, how are you doing today? It's a beautiful day out today, and I just kind of wanted to go around and talk about some of the varieties of vegetables that I'm growing and why I've chosen those certain varieties. So we're just gonna kind of go around and talk about the different carrots that I've chosen and tomatoes and such. So let's just go along and we'll talk about things. The whole reason I choose the Denver half-longs, I also do the Scarlet Nantes as well, but this year I was using up some old seed, and this is seed that we had purchased back in 2013 out of, we just order our seeds in mail orders. So I've growing the Denver half-longs. I just find that they're a nice sweet carrot, and I just want to show you. I did pick some the other day. I was just thinning them out, but yeah, it's a really nice, like this one obviously isn't as big as what they would get, but it's usually, they'll get probably about this size, probably twice the length that this one is here. And like I say, I like it because it's a nice sweet orange carrot, and that's the whole reason I've chosen that. I've planted the most of the Denver half-longs. I've got three, probably, I would say they're about 3 8-foot rows. So that was one of the, as for my squash, I have chosen the Black Beauty, a green zucchini, and I just find that I love green zucchini. Zucchini is so versatile. I mean, if you have too much, you're definitely going to find a harder time using it. But we usually pick it when it's usually, I don't know, about 8, 10, sometimes even 12 inches long. And then if it gets too big, like a lot of times if we're not around to pick the zucchini and it gets too big, I just end up shredding that and I'll put it in my freezer and use that for baking. But generally we try to pick it when they're about 8 to 10, 12 inches long. And so this is the Black Beauty. The one in the middle here is the Peter Pan squash, and it is like the idea of the longer zucchinis. You cook it the same, but it's more in the shape of like one of those little, it reminds me of like a flying saucer spaceship kind of thing, the way it looks. It's a pale green in color. Last year was my first year for planting that, and I really enjoyed it a lot. You can also get it in a yellow variety as well. I cannot remember the name of that variety though, but this is the Peter Pan squash that I have here. And I do have a couple of little Peter Pan squashes that have formed on here, just waiting for them to finish developing. Over in this other corner, I have, it's the Gold Rush yellow zucchini. I like it as well. I mean, green zucchini's good, but it's nice to have both of them. I do a lot of, I'll saute chopped up zucchini with onions, and I just have a little bit of olive oil and some garlic and salt and pepper, and I'll saute that, and I really enjoy that a lot. So I like to have the yellow, the green, and I also like to do the Peter Pan squash as well. I did plant a pumpkin this year. It is a spirit pumpkin, and I haven't actually grown pumpkin in a while. And this one said it was a semi-bush variety. So I'm excited to try that. I'm hoping that it doesn't take over the whole bed, and so far it hasn't, but it also hasn't started flowering yet and really taking over. So I'll keep an eye on that for sure. In behind my squash and the zucchinis, I have my indeterminate tomatoes. So all of my indeterminate tomatoes I actually have out in the garden here. And the reason why I have them out in this area is because an indeterminate tomato needs to be staked, and because they get to they get quite tall, and I will prune an indeterminate tomato a lot more heavily than I would do a bush tomato, where I have all my bush tomatoes are in pots on my deck. So these ones here, I have the Amish paste on this side, and that is your Roma paste tomato. And then on this other side are the Carnival blend, which is another type of the brandy wine variety. And so that's just a bigger tomato, and I use those for salsa. Making salsa, I'll use them for having in a toasted tomato sandwich as well. We eat a lot of toasted tomato sandwiches in the summertime, just because I don't buy tomatoes in the store to make a toasted tomato sandwich. It just doesn't happen. They are just way better to be having them fresh out of the garden. Here I have my rutabagas. And for the rutabagas, it's a root vegetable, and it's not going to be ready until probably closer in towards the end of September, beginning of October. With rutabagas, you actually want the rutabagas have a better taste to them when they've actually had a little bit of frost hit them. I find that they are a little bit more sweeter, but I use it like you would use a turnip, and a lot of times I'm replacing potatoes with the rutabagas. It's trying to get away from using a lot of potatoes, higher in carbs, that kind of thing, lowering in your sugars that you're taking in. So that's one of the reasons, a lot of the reasons why I've decided to plant rutabagas. So last year was my first year planting rutabagas, and I really enjoyed them. I've bought them from the grocery store as well, and that's I bought them from the grocery store to just get a kind of an idea of what they were going to taste like. So I've grown these before. These ones they have lots of holes in them. And but that's okay, because I don't eat the leaves. I only eat the root that's in the ground, so that works out good for me. These beans here, these are my dragon tongue bush beans. They're just starting to flower, and then they'll start producing some beans on them. Also, my first year planting the dragon tongue bush beans was last year, and they're actually a really nice bean for cooking up, just to boil them or saute them. I like the looks of them too. They have kind of like a purple pod for the beans, and then there's like little yellow streaks that go through on the pod, but they're really flavorful. I really enjoy them also. In behind here, these are my Aunt Ruby's German green tomatoes. Now, I've never planted these before, and they are an indeterminate tomato. So when I prune these quite heavily, and I usually keep the bottom, this is about 1.5 feet. I keep all the leaves off of those. I've pruned all the leaves down off of them, and it just brings in a lot more airflow on them. These have actually, I see that I have a tomato coming in on there, and I'm excited about that. So these are kind of a yellowy orange with green streaks in them. And again, I will use these for in toasted sandwiches. I'll use them for salsa, or even canned tomatoes as well. And they are definitely a big slicer tomato that I'm hoping that they'll be a nice tomato to have. And then in behind here are the other two tomatoes on the other side. Those are the Brandywine tomatoes as well, and I did plant those last year and they were really good. We ate a lot of sandwiches with them. In front here I have my jalapeno peppers. I've got lots of peppers coming in on these. Last year I only had one jalapeno pepper plant, and so I hardly had any peppers off of them. And I like to use peppers in a lot of my cooking. I put jalapeno peppers in my salsa as well. I use them in a lot of my dishes, casseroles, and I'd like to actually try making the cowboy candy with these jalapeno peppers. I'd like to try that too. Okay, over here I have they are the atomic red carrot. I haven't planted these before. I actually picked one of these, and I'm just gonna pick one. Now this one actually looks pretty orange just by looking at it. It's definitely more on the baby side of the carrot, and when I was reading up on these, they are a red carrot, but when you cook them, they get even redder when you cook them. And also they have more beta carotene in this carrot than there is in your other regular carrots. So I'm pretty excited about trying these, and this was the reason I decided to try these this year. I didn't plant them last year. In behind here I have my broccoli, and this broccoli is my Munchkin broccoli. You might have noticed that I had to take my covers off of that. I did have some fabric cover over my broccoli, but we had a really heavy rainfall, and if I had problems with my cats wrecking my little covers that I had over my broccoli and cauliflower and my cabbage, well, the rain just tore right through my mesh fabric netting covers, and I ended up having to take them all down. So I mean, they look really good. The broccoli looks really nice. It's just starting to form a head in the center of it. These ones are pretty small, and so hopefully they'll be okay. They didn't have any bug damage on them before, so hopefully I won't have much more bug damage on them now. In behind here is my butter crunch lettuce. I really like the butter crunch lettuce. I grew this last year, and I use it in salads, I use it in sandwiches, I use it in making a wrap with meat and veggies and cheese, and I'll use this lettuce here to make a sandwich. Really easy to pick. I just go around every few days and I just pick off the outer leaves, and then I'll wash them up in my sink. They wash up really nice, but you want to make sure that you put them through a lettuce spinner that you would clean your lettuce with. You want to put them through the spinner and get all the excess water out of the lettuce. I do that with this lettuce here and my romaine, and I also use it for my kale. All of my lettuces and my kale, I will wash them up and I'll put them through my salad spinner to get the excess water out of them, because then I'm putting them in bags and I'm giving them to friends and family. And if you don't spin out that excess water, then they just are they seem heavy, and they're not airy and crisp and light the way a lettuce should be. In behind my Butter Crunch lettuce, I have the Dwarf green curled leaf kale. Yeah, got myself a little green worm on there too. This one, I planted this last year. It has really nice leaves of the kale. I picked this, this will probably be my 4th time I've picked this kale. I really like the way it stands up. It's a really good producer as well. And I just do pick this. And again, like I was saying, I'll wash it. I'll just fill up my sink with cold water. And then I wash all the leaves. I inspect all of them because there are worms in, and they're just little tiny baby green worms, it seems to be, that's on them. So I'll look over them all, and after I've washed them, and then I'll put them through my salad spinner and spin out the excess water off of them and pack them up into bags and keep them in my crisper, or I give them away to my friends. And then I have this other kale here, and this is the Toscano Kale, and this is another really good kale. I like growing it as well. You can not only use this in salads, and you can also use these in making for juicing, putting in your smoothies. You could use this instead of putting spinach in your smoothies or in for juicing, and it actually blends up really nice in your juicing and your smoothies. Okay, this here is my Freckles romaine lettuce, and again, it's a really nice lettuce. You can just pick it off so easy, and I just pick the outer leaves off. Just any of the bigger outer leaves, I'll pick them off, wash them up, put them through my salad spinner, and use them for lettuces, sandwiches, wraps, in salads. Give them away. Just a really nice romaine lettuce. Okay, so in this bed I have, actually I have 4 kinds of beets in this bed here. I was just pushing the dirt up along the tops of the beets as they're forming, just to keep the shoulders of the beets covered underneath the dirt. So in this first row are my cylinder beets, and then next to them are the bull's blood beets, and I've never grown the bull's blood beets before, so super excited about that, about those beets. And then next to them are the red Ace Beets. In behind the red Ace Beets, I didn't quite have enough seeds to plant a full row of the red Ace Beets, so I ended up putting in some golden Detroit beets in behind. Now, beets are probably one of my favorite vegetables that I like to grow. I like to roast the beets. I like to pickle them. I'll use them in making borscht soup. And I even like to shred them raw and put them into salads as well. In this bed, I have some more carrots. These are my solar yellow carrots, and then in behind them are my purple Haze. So I'm just going to grab one of the solar yellow carrot. And so definitely a yellow carrot, not as long as it would normally be growing. It'd be longer than this. And I did grow these last year, and I mean, they were an alright carrot. I didn't find them as flavorful as the Denver half longs. And then as far as the purple haze carrots go, I'll just grab one out of here. I'm just trying to pick one that needs to be thinned out. So here's the purple haze. And it's actually a good carrot. I like it raw. I'm not as big of a fan of it cooked. And then in the center, it's orange in the center. It's not that it has a bad taste or anything as far as the carrot goes itself. It's not aesthetically pleasing for me. I just don't like how the water goes like a gray color. I put it in a soup I was making, and it actually turned the broth of my soup a purple color. And that's fine if it's just a regular vegetable soup, but I actually was trying to make it a creamy soup, and it didn't look very creamy after I was finished. So it wasn't really the look I was going for. So yeah, I wasn't overly impressed by that. I'm not going to waste the seeds though, so I've just planted what I had left for my seeds. I just don't think I would be ordering them again. But I like to try different things and see what I like and what I don't like about the different vegetables. And that was a few of the cons when growing these vegetables. Really impressed with the way that these beans are climbing up this panel that I have. They haven't started flowering, but boy, are they ever just making their way up this panel. They're probably almost to the top of this arbor support. Over here I have my Swiss chard. This is the Bright Lights Swiss chard. I really like the looks of the Bright Lights Swiss chard. I mean, that's basically all I was going for when I planted this. I planted this last year and I really enjoyed it. Any of my leaves that have kind of a, like, they'll have this sun scald on it, and I actually just feed that to the pigs. I don't waste it at all. And then this part, I'll chop that up and I'll saute it, and I can put it with scrambled eggs, or we'll use it in a soup. A friend of mine was saying she'll chop it all up and then just put it in freezer bags and use it in the wintertime for soups and lasagna and stews and that type of thing, and she'll just chop up that and put it in there. So I'm probably going to end up trying that this year, is going to freeze some of it in my freezer as well. So yeah, I really like the Bright Light Swiss chard. Here is my overgrown Chinese toi choy. I probably could have gotten away with just keeping one of these plants, but I left probably about 4 or 5 of them to go to seed. And then these little pods in here, once the plant is dried, these little pods will be, I'm going to wait until they're dried too, and then I'm going to open them up, and I am just going to take the seeds that are out of that, and I'll save those seeds for future Chinese toi choy. With the Chinese toi choy, I really like it for sauteing, putting in stir fries, and I just find that it's a really fast growing plant that you can have it within 30 days, kind of like your radishes. We have some more bush beans. These are the tender green bush beans, and I've got flowers growing on these, and I've got some beans forming. It's going to be a couple more days before I can actually start to pick any of the beans, but they're coming along, and we've got beans, and they are definitely growing. I'm just going to show you here. Right in here, I've got the bean, and it's only about 4 inches long now, but it'll be coming along in no time. And then up here are my snap peas, and these here are my sugar snap pole peas. And here's one here. I love the snap peas. I mean, what's not to like about that? I like the idea that you can just pick it right off and eat it. I don't have to pick them all, take them in the house, shell them. I'm not one for shelling peas. I find that I just don't have time to be shelling peas, so I would much rather have them as a snap pea. And you can use the snap peas in salads, eat them by themselves as a snack, and you can also use them in a stir fry too. Really good. Except for that piece. Here I've got my Scorpio cabbage. Like I said before, I had to take off the covers off of these because the rain was so heavy it ripped right through my netting fabric that I had over these. So there was no bug damage on these at all. And this morning when I was out here, I noticed that I had slugs in the cabbage, so I ended up treating it with some diatomaceous earth, which the diatomaceous earth is basically crushed up shells, seashells, and what that does when you're sprinkling it on the cabbage is it's like shards, and what those shards do is it basically cuts through the slugs, so it takes care of the slugs. I mean, I'm sorry slugs, but I can't be having you wrecking my cabbage on me after I've went to this much trouble for it. So I'm really happy with the Scorpio cabbage and the way it looks. Really nice big leaves on it, and it's starting to form heads on it too. Here you see it, more tomato plants. Unfortunately, this poor tomato plant, this is the old German tomato plant that I've planted over on this side. And I don't know what it is about this poor tomato plant, but the one that I had over here, I ended up breaking it off at the base, trying to tie it up. So I ended up putting in another little extra tomato plant that I had. I don't know what variety it is. So then I'm trying to tie up this other old German tomato. I've never grown these before, so I'm excited to try them out, but I'm trying to tie up this other old German tomato plant, and I end up breaking off a big chunk off of it too. So what I did was I stuck this old German to top off of it. I stuck it in the ground beside this variety that I don't know what it is, and we'll see what happens. So, and also over here I have, this is my Cayenne pepper plant. I grew this last year and it did really, really well. I ended up getting lots of Cayenne peppers off of it. The problem with the way after I harvested them, I actually didn't do it properly. After I harvested them, what I should have done was taken the whole plant and dug it up, and then taken it inside and turned it upside down, hanging upside down, and let it finish maturing, because all the peppers that were on this Cayenne plant were still green, and usually they end up turning red. So I want to hang this plant until they have finished maturing, and then once they are dried, then I can finish processing them, because what I do is that I will end up drying them and then turning them into like a cayenne pepper, the powder, and use it for seasoning. Over beside that is my yellow pear tomatoes. Those are just a small little type of a cherry tomato, but they're in the shape of a pear, hence the yellow pear. And I use them for salads or just eating them by themselves, putting them onto a veggie tray for company when they come over. I really like the yellow pear tomatoes. Okay, so in this bed I have this first one here. This is my Brussels sprouts. And then these other three here, those are cauliflower, and these are my early Snowball cauliflower. And I know that people find cauliflower really hard to grow, and I can attest that I find it really hard to grow as well. Last year when I tried growing it, I pulled the leaves up over the heads, but they still ended up having a really yellow tinge to them, even brown in some spots. So I wasn't overly confident about eating the cauliflower. These cauliflowers, I had them covered in my little mesh fabric tents, and like I say, there was no pest damage on them, but now that I've had to take the covers off, I'm going to have to definitely keep an eye on them and make sure that I don't have any pests and treat it as I come across them. In behind here, right there, I have the celery. And with the celery, I really like growing celery. I grew it last year for the first time, and it did all right. I picked quite a bit off of it, and I like to use celery in a lot of my sauces when I'm doing lasagna and spaghetti. I also use it in canned tomatoes, like if I'm going to make stewed tomatoes, I will use a lot of celery in that. I like celery by itself, just to eat it plain. As the celery is growing, I'm mounding the dirt up around it, and that just helps it to do the self-blanching. So I'm just mounding the dirt up, and that will also make it so that it grows kind of more in like the way it should be, as a bunch in, I don't know what the term is called when celery grows. I know they're the stalks, but when you have them all together, is that a bunch? Maybe. I can't remember. So anyways, I have quite a bit of celery. I think I have like 6 or 7 plants, celery plants. I started the seeds. They did really well. I even gave 3 or 4 of them away to a friend so she could plant them in her garden as well. So yeah, I had an abundance of celery. I have 10 varieties of indeterminate tomato plants. I did 2 of each of the different varieties. This variety here, this is actually the back of the tomato plant, but this variety here is a natural black cherry. I grew these last year, and I could not believe the amount of cherry tomatoes that I got off of them. This one here on this little stem here, it already has tomatoes forming on them, and they're quite a nice sized cherry tomato. It's a bigger cherry tomato, and when they ripen, it's kind of like a reddy black hue to the tomatoes. Got a bit of a smoky flavor to them, but they are definitely a tomato that you get a lot out of it. And I have 2 of those, and you can see here how I have, like, the base of the plant is down here, and I have pruned it like probably, I'm gonna say from the bottom to here where it has a junction in it, that's probably 18 inches or so, and I have pruned all the bottom leaves off of the bottom of it. showing you from the front of the tomato plant. So there's the base of it, and it goes all the way up, all the way up, and then like right there where you see the fork, yeah, that's where, and then the top of it. And I prune out any of the suckers that grow, like a sucker will grow in the pocket right in here. You'll see a little sprout. I went and plucked them all out, so I don't have any as of yet, but I definitely get them in. These two tomato plants here on this side, if you're going up, lots of flowers on them. These are Oxheart tomatoes. With the Oxheart tomato, it actually is quite a meaty tomato, and it grows in the shape of a heart. I grew these last year, and I didn't get very many off of the vine, so I'm hoping the production will be a little bit better off of them this year. We'll just have to wait and see. I'm just going to show you what I meant by the suckers. So if I look in here, and I don't know if you can, oh, this one leaf is in the way. Let me get in here. So right in here, there's the sucker. And all I do is I just pluck that right out. And you need to prune your indeterminate tomatoes quite heavily. These ones are my sweet sunset peppers. I grew these last year. I really enjoyed them. I definitely like the sweet peppers better than the hot peppers. And I have quite a few buds on these pepper plants, so it'll be just a matter of time before I have my peppers growing on here. I use these peppers in salsa. I'll use them in meat sauces for spaghetti, lasagna. I'll put them in chili. We just like to eat them by themselves. Definitely the sweet peppers are a lot better for eating by themselves. In behind the peppers, I have some French breakfast radishes. I just planted these probably about 3 weeks ago, and there they are. They do get longer than this, but this one actually looks really good, and I just figured, well, I would pick it. I like the French breakfast. They're a really nice growing radish. That's usually the one that my go-to radish that I like to plant. Well, we're in the last bed for here in the garden. So this is the last of my indeterminate tomatoes that I have. These two on this end are my chocolate sprinkles tomatoes. That's another type of cherry tomato. I grew these last year. I really like them a lot. They're a smaller, well, I mean, they're not smaller as far as the cherry tomato goes, but I really think they're super cute. So these ones, they're red, but then they're green on the top. So don't wait for them for the whole cherry tomato to turn red, because it just doesn't happen. And I just think they're a really cute cherry tomato, and I decided to grow them again this year. I probably will keep growing them. Oh, I keep getting these little sprouts at the base of my tomato plants, and I just keep plucking them out just like I would with the suckers. On the other side, I have the two indeterminate, and they're my New Girl tomatoes, and those ones are just an average, your average medium-sized tomato. They're great for canning. They're great for putting in sandwiches. I mean, they're a versatile tomato, just all around really great tomato. And then in front of the tomatoes, I have my two Gypsy Peppers, another sweet pepper. And I used to grow these before, and then I quit growing them for a while, and I decided that I would start growing them again. They start out to be like a pale green, and they will go to a yellow. I don't think they turn red. I don't ever remember them turning red, but I mean, we'll soon find out as time goes on and once they mature. So that's it for in the garden. We're going to go over onto my deck and we'll talk about some of the bush tomatoes that I have growing over on my deck. Okay, so this is one of the Determinate, the bush variety of tomatoes, and that's why I have those in pots on the deck, is because I don't have to stake them. I just can use one of these tomato cages and it works perfectly fine. I don't have to prune these tomatoes pretty much at all. The only thing I take off of these tomato plants is if I notice some of the leaves are starting to yellow at the bottom, I'll snap them off and put them into my compost pile. And but with this one, this is my Lemon Boy tomato, so it's a yellow. It is low in acid and it has less seeds in the Lemon Boy tomato as well. I don't have to prune out any of these little suckers that are growing on here. I have flowers on here, so it's doing quite nice. Last year I tried growing these and I actually ordered the seeds, and that was one of the packet of seeds that I ended up, it was back ordered, so I never got them in time to start the tomatoes in enough time to have them, to put them outside and plant them out in the pots. So I actually haven't grown these yet. So that's my Lemon Boy. This one over here, another bush variety. This is the Manitoba. It is a red tomato. It is just your average size. It actually develops in a shorter amount of days than a lot, like those indeterminates out in the garden. You're looking at probably 70 to 85, somewhere even 95 days before they are ready to mature. With the other thing about the bush varieties, they only grow to a certain size. So they're not going to grow like the indeterminate tomatoes are. They grow to a certain size and they produce all their tomatoes basically at the same time. Whereas an indeterminate tomato, they continue to keep growing the tomatoes until the end of the season. Like they're just a really, if you have a good one, like some of those, I'm not exactly sure, like the old German, I've never grown those before. I've never grown the Aunt Ruby's German Green. I haven't grown those before. Last year, my Ox Hearts weren't big producers. Neither were my Amish Paste. They weren't big producers. So a lot of those tomatoes, the indeterminate tomatoes, I think the only ones that were in shorter days that they're ready are, you know, your chocolate sprinkles and the yellow pear. My yellow pear are actually a little late to the party because they haven't even produced any flowers on them yet, so I'm not sure what's taking them so long. Okay, and then we have the tumbler. I really like the idea of this tumbler. I love the idea that it's in a hanging basket, that we have a red tumbler and a yellow tumbler, and I've got tomatoes over here, I've got tomatoes over on this side as well. Lots of flowers on here. I've also got some spiders growing in here, but I'm not too crazy about having spiders hanging on my plants. I grew these last year and I really enjoyed them, and I will continue to grow them. I actually have to order more seeds for my next year's growing. I've grown the last of my tumblers. I have 3 hanging baskets with 2 tumbler plants in each basket. My last tomato. This is the San Marzano tomato, and it is a bush, a determinate. And if you like, it's a good one to choose. You can either do the San Marzano for, it's like a Roma paste tomato, or you could do a Roma tomato. But you need to, if you want something in a pot like this, you want to make sure it's the bush variety. And that way then you can let it grow. You can put a tomato cage on it. I mean, it needs to be in a half decent size pot. This is probably 12-inch pot. And you just need a tomato ring. You don't need to prune it. It's not a heavy pruner. And it's got the flowers on it. It's going to be producing tomatoes anytime. I've got another little spider that's growing on there. I don't like those little baby spiders. I don't like baby spiders. And as you'll notice here on the bottom, so what I was talking about, I just prune off any of the leaves that just are yellowing. I'll prune those off. It's not going to do anything. It's not like I'm heavily pruning it all the way up, or I'm taking out the suckers out of it. Pruning off of a couple of leaves isn't a big deal at all. So now you have a little bit more of an idea of why I grow some of the vegetables that I do grow. I didn't really touch on my eggplants because I'm very new at growing the eggplants. Last year I tried starting my own plants and I ended up having to buy them. Eggplant can be kind of finicky, especially starting from seed. This year I actually got the eggplant to start from seed, but they're really tiny plants and I'm not sure if they're even going to mature by the end of this season. So I just wanted to kind of take you and show you the plants that I have that I know do really well, and what I like about them and why I like them. Okay, I just wanted to kind of show you what I'm do here when I was saying how I clean up my lettuce and my kale, and I use my salad spinner for it to take out the excess water. So I just wanted to show you that. This is probably the most I ever use my salad spinner, and I'll look at all the leaves and just make sure that there's no of those little green worms. I find them mostly on the kale, and that was the reason why I was saying I put them in the salad spinner. I find that the leaves, if I don't do that, they seem like if you don't put them through the salad spinner, I've just put them in the bag and they seem soggy. That was the word I was looking for. That's exactly how I want to describe what the lettuce is like. It seems soggy. So when I run it through my lettuce spinner, my salad spinner, it takes that excess moisture out, takes the excess water out, and it works really well. So I'll do a couple more here. Like, it just seems so limp once the water hits it. But once I spin out this water and then I put it into some bags, it comes out really nice and crisp, and you would never know that it was ever soggy. So I'm just going to fill up this salad spinner. Get a few more in here. I know that there's never usually any bugs, but you never know. I put all the kale and the lettuce together in one sink, and you never know if the bug might jump to the next piece of lettuce or whatever. Who knows? So I think that should be just about enough for this one. And I just plop this on here. Give it a good spin. Take that out. This is, and then look at the amount of water that I got out of the lettuce. And then I'll grab one of my little bags. And I just buy these bags at one of our box stores that carry a lot of commercial kitchen stuff for restaurants and stuff like that. I pick up these bags. These are just little 5-pound, 10-pound bags. And I fill them up with the lettuce leaves, and I keep them separate. I put lettuce in one and kale in another. And that's a good little amount of lettuce, and then I'll give that to any family or friends, and because there's no way we're going to eat all of this lettuce. Another thing I wanted to show you was I started making this gardener's hand soap. And it's just a natural gardener's hand soap. And so when I come in after I've been out working in the garden, I'll come in, my hands will be just have serious tomato glue is what it's like. And it's just coated on my fingers from pruning and picking out the little suckers off the tomatoes and cleaning them up. And so I just take some of this. It's just and I take a bit in my hand. I'm going to turn this on to hot. And what it is it is sugar and lemon peel that I have, I take and I get the zest off of the lemon. So it's lemon peel, I get rosemary and I chop up the fresh rosemary leaves and I really work it in, especially around my fingernails, because I find that when I'm gardening, that's probably where it doesn't matter how much I wash my hands and how much I scrub them, when it comes to that tomato stuff, paste, glue, whatever you want to call it, after I've been doing that, I find that around my fingernails is where it is the worst. So, oh yeah, so it's sugar, lemon zest, rosemary leaves chopped. Then there's the Castle liquid soap, and I just buy the unscented Castle liquid soap. There is also a little bit of olive oil in here, and that olive oil helps to moisturize. The sugar helps to exfoliate your skin on your hands, because your hands can get pretty dry and rough when working out in the garden. And and then there is clary sage essential oil in it. I make this up. I did a small batch of it, and I make it up. And the reason why I did a small batch is because it only lasts for a week. So I did up a small batch. I filled up this jar only half full, and I gave another jar half full to a friend of mine so she could try it at her place and see what she thinks of it. So yeah, it works pretty good. I am enjoying it. I'm going to be going on a holiday pretty quick here. I'm going to go visit my sister in Saskatchewan, and I'm going to take her some because she loves to garden as well, and I think she would really enjoy to have some of this all natural garden soap. So thanks again for joining me. I hope you liked this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Put a like in there so maybe some of your friends will be able to watch this video. And if you haven't subscribed, maybe subscribe as well. Anyways, thanks for joining me, and we'll talk again. Bye for now.